Well, hello, everybody. You know what I'm going to say? Welcome back to the Man Up Table. We're so glad that you're here. My name's Jay Huffman. I'm the founding pastor here at Man Up Ministries in Austin and around the world. And I got my good buddy.
Hey, I'm back.
Yeah, he made the cut.
Woo!
Wow, just barely.
It was a close one.
Just barely, but you're back with us. We co-wrote and we're co-teaching this series on legacy. It's a concept we've been developing as friends and ministry partners for the last couple of years. And last week we talked about kind of the intentionality of legacy, and today we're going to go into legacy is relational. Like, actually, what does it look like on a Tuesday afternoon to leave a legacy at home, or a Thursday afternoon in the office, or a Friday afternoon in your dorm? Like, what is the relationship component? And I can't wait to dive into that. Let's do a quick recap of last week in case you missed.
So, hey guys, so it's really a joy and honor to be here with Jay. He's one of my closest friends, and we do this work together really passionately. And so to be able to lead this series and teach it with him is a true joy. And I think the idea of this series is born of, we want this to be intentional. And so we talked last week a lot about the fact that you'll never leave a godly legacy accidentally.
That's right.
It will only happen intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And this series has been on our hearts for so long because we wanted it to be very practical, very approachable, so that when you hear these words, that you feel like you're empowered to do something with them. So as we think about last week and what we talked about the idea that part of intentionality, it's one word, it's one action, it's a reaction.
That's the hard one.
That's right. And it's just one choice at a time. And so as this works when you're teaching something, do you have an illustration that's less than 24 hours old?
Always happen the day or the night before.
They happen right then. So last night I'm coming home from a long day at work, get home kind of later than normal because I had a meeting run long, and my daughter's sick. Now, I've got tape. We're doing this today, and last night was when I was going to review my notes a little bit and kind of prepare for today, do some laundry because that's what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, gotta get shirts ironed.
You got to get shirts ironed. You got to make sure you got clean socks and all that. And so I walk in the house, grab some food, and my daughter's sick. She's not feeling good. Now, my wife's preparing for her own project that's happening this week. And there was this really brief conversation of
brief but tense.
Brief, but who spoke first was going to lose, basically. But it was also this opportunity of, we talked about one choice and one word and one action and one reaction. And in that moment, my choice was, I'll take her. So I'll take her to the after hours clinic for the 8:15 appointment at night.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that I'm leaving the house and I'll be gone for 2.5 hours. And by the time I get back, the energy I'll have to prepare and review notes and make sure I've got things ready for the laundry and all that, I would be behind schedule, and some of that would have to be missed. Yeah. And in that moment, the choice was...
This was your legacy moment?
This was my legacy moment.
To apply what you're teaching or to skip over.
And it was what most of us would look at as a small, minor choice. But for the next 2.5 hours, I'm with my daughter. I'm supporting her through this doctor's appointment. I'm helping understand what's going on with her medical situation, and being supportive as I can, while also hopefully honoring my wife by redeeming that time so she could do what she needed to do. And guys, that is what last week was about. The intentionality of these choices may seem very small in the moment. And while my daughter may not remember this years from now, it's one small investment in that relationship, and hopefully my wife and daughter in this example, that makes it so that choice hopefully leads to and points to the legacy that I want to lead.
Yeah, it's, and you think about the three people involved in that story. You wanted to serve your wife, you wanted to serve your daughter, and you and I were co-serving together.
Right.
In those three environments, I took the back seat.
That's right.
I remember waking up to a text this morning, and he's like, "Man, I'm scrambling to get my notes to you, but I had to serve my family last night." And I literally responded back. I says, "We're doing all we can.
That's right.
To serve our family and serve the men here at Men Up.
And so
I believe God's going to match our efforts."
Right.
So you made the right call, and it was timely for today's lesson.
Yeah, and so are you. Each of you are listening to that.
We're so proud of. I watched some of you just really make difficult decisions to put this into practice, and we want to honor you and celebrate you and equip you to keep doing that with today's lesson.
So we'll jump in this new lesson, but as we do, there's a definition that we want to make sure that you begin to internalize and you begin to make your own, is this idea of legacy sharing what you know, love, and value. So the head, heart, and hands. with the people around you, those that you're doing life with, so that they can do it without you.
Yeah. So they can do it without you. Because one day, we said this last week,
That's right.
Everything that you lead, every ministry, company, nonprofit, every board that you're on, everything that you contribute to and everybody that you love will eventually go on without you. And we need to prep them for that and be mindful along the way. Today, we're going to talk about this kind of value of relationships.
Yep.
Legacy is not transactional. It's not, I do for you and I expect from you. I do for you, I expect from you. And by golly, if you don't live up to my expectations, and I'm going to drop the ball on you.
Well, that was last week too. I'm out. Like, I'm done.
So it's legacy is relational, meaning I'm all in. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to share my life with you so that I can, over time, and by the way, you don't usually know when it's going to happen.
No, you don't. There's not some clear indicator of an arrow that says, this is it.
This is the legacy moment right here. Carpool to the middle school football game.
That's right.
But I think it just kind of happens along the way.
It does.
And David said it well in Psalm 71, verse 7. He goes, my life is an example. Circle the word example. My life is an example to many. Because, God, you have been my strength and my protection. And this is why I can never stop praising you. I declare your glory all day long. I declare your glory in the kitchen. I declare your glory at the ER or the aftercare. I declare your glory when we're on vacation, when we're in the boardroom, when we're in the dorm room, when we're on the soccer field. This idea of relational legacy means that everywhere you go, you're constantly thinking about my words, my actions, my choices, and my reactions. I'm building a legacy that I'm giving away along the way. As a youth pastor for 20 years, I had a lot of parents ask me, they're like, so is it quality time
or quantity
time? Yeah. And I would often say, it's quantity time. Quantity time. Because in the course of the quantity of time, all of a sudden the quality time shows up. You can't always plan for that, but as you give your life away, as you're in that deep relationship with those around you, that's the magic of when legacy happens.
That's right.
I love this. I went to a Global Leadership Summit earlier this year, and I heard John Maxwell say this quote, it's legacy isn't something you leave for them, it's something you leave in them. It's not something you leave for them, like just some money in the bank at the end of the day, but it's literally deposits that you make in your son, in your daughter, in your wife, in your coworkers, your team ministries, or your ministry partner, that you leave something in them along the way. That's relationship, my friend. Now, we're going to take just a little pin in the notes for just a second and talk about 3 concepts of relationships that feel like they need a few minutes of discussion. And number 1 is this: not all of your relationships are equal. I'm not sure if anybody's told you that before.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look at thousands of contacts and all the appointments, and we mistakenly think that they're all equal. And as the opening story,
that's right, they're not.
They're not all equal.
No.
I was third on that list and should be. Because there are some relationships that matter more than others, and they deserve more of your heart and your hands and your head. They deserve more of your attention and more of your time. I think we should even block that time out and says, you know what, these are non-negotiables. These people, especially in my closest circle, they get the best of me, and everybody else gets the rest of me.
Yeah.
That's good.
Amen. That's really good. We should write that down.
Somebody should write that down and print it in the next book.
Right.
So not all of your relationships are equal, so don't treat them that way. Number 2, some of your relationships are seasonal.
Yeah.
Some of your relationships are seasonal, so don't discount them. If you're a student, you're going to be with that class for 1 year. So don't discount the legacy that you're leaving in that classroom for that year, or in that dorm room for that year, or on that ball team for that year, or on that baseball league for that year, or the team that you're with on that trip even, or that project. Sometimes we get sad that the relationships come and go, and I think I look back and go, what a beautiful season that was. And we're not as close. I can't be as close to everybody for the rest of my life. But I don't think it's bad to devalue. Don't devalue those seasons of relationships. Now, here's the hard one. A lot of our relationships are superficial.
Yeah.
and we spend a lot of time and energy on kind of nothing. Small talk and weather and politics and sports and things that don't really get to the heart of the matter. And for the relationships in your life that really do matter, I think you need to go all in.
Yeah.
And that's mainly what today's lesson is about, is kind of going all in on those relationships that matter and doing that every single day of your life.
Well, because it takes time, right?
It takes so much time.
To water these relationships and to make deposits in them. It's very much what the saying, if you want to know what matters to someone, look at their checkbook or their calendar. In this series, at least in this lesson, when it comes to the relationship piece, it is very much the choice of, does your yes to one person, is that the most valuable yes you can make to that person? Because relationally, the relationships aren't equal, and some are seasonal, right? So if you're in a seasonal relationship on a project or a team or in a class or in an environment in a neighborhood, make the most of that season while you're with those folks, knowing that it will come to an end at some point, right? And so that time will be redeployed in a different way when that season ends.
A lot of times, if you're taking care of young children,
that's right. I think about that
or aging parents.
That's right.
There's these seasons in your life that kind of suck up a lot of your time, and you have to say no to some fun stuff during that season, so you can say yes to that for that season.
That's exactly right. So as we get into this, as we think about this relational piece, one of the statements that Jay and I kind of processed early on in our relationship was this idea that you have influence and that it's worth something, right? So the statement that we're thinking about for this lesson is, legacy is using your influence to make a difference. And so your influence at different times in relationships looks different. So when the kids are young, the influence looks different. When the kids are older, when you're a new employee, your influence looks different when you've been there for a while. When you're new at a church, your influence looks different than when you've been a volunteer for a long time. So this idea of influence, we all have it, but it adjusts over a continuum, right? It expands from maybe very little to a lot more. And oftentimes I get stuck in the mindset of, oh, my influence is always really small, not recognizing that it's actually grown over time. And the difference that influence can make also is expanding. So when I think about this, for us, it's like, who is around you that's looking up to you? Who's paying attention to what you're doing? I think of myself as someone who's still in their 20s. Like I think of myself.
You're not.
I know, but that's my point. Like I walk into environments thinking that I'm still a young person. But then I look around and realize that I'm the oldest person there.
Well, we're a great team. I walk in and think, man, I feel like the oldest guy in the room, for sure.
So the idea is the people that are around you are looking up to you. They're paying attention relationally to what you're doing and how you're behaving. And so this idea is, you'll never leave a godly legacy accidentally. It will happen intentionally. So how are you intentionally engaging the people that you have influence over to make a difference in their lives? So
whether it's your family,
your
ministry,
your friends,
your career.
Right? So you have these relationships Jay talked about, not equal. They're sometimes seasonal and they're not, sometimes superficial. They're watching you. In a business, when I think about this for a business, the audience is always listening, right? Like they're watching what you're doing because you have some influence over the conversation or where you're sitting at the table or where you are in that moment.
Or the title in your name.
The title, that's right, the title you have. So a few years ago, we had been part of a church for about 20 years. I think I mentioned last week how my parents had started a church when I was young. By the time I was in my 20s, I'd only been at one church my whole life.
Wow.
By the time I was closing out my 40s, I'd only been at two churches my whole life. So I'd only basically attended and been a member and an active volunteer in two churches up until a few years ago. Well, as a few years ago was happening, my kids were all getting older. They were becoming more adults. And I looked around and realized that as we were launching these children, now young adults, into their own individual lives, there were some things about church that they didn't understand. They'd only seen one version of church. And they'd only seen that with the same people. And they needed a different view of what church looked like as they went off to college, as they moved into their apartments in into urban parts of towns or in different cities. I was beginning to feel like what the church was offering them was not going to take them to the place they needed to go developmentally in their own faith. And I was watching them.
It met your family's needs for a long season. But not for that current season.
That's right. And so when I look at this through this lens of influence and difference, the tough conversations with my wife, which we agreed upon, and the conversations with the kids of saying, it's time for us to maybe find a new church home. And that was painful for me but it was beneficial to them in major ways. And so now we've been at this church we've been at for about 3 years, and the lives that my kids are leading now compared to what it looked like before.
Yeah, that's vastly different.
They're volunteering, they're leading groups, they're totally plugged into youth and small groups, and we can't wait to be engaged in those environments. And a big part of that was looking directly at this season of life and saying, I have influence over this decision in our family with my wife, and we agreed it was time to make a decision that was difficult for us, but was beneficial to them. And so from a legacy standpoint, this relational aspect of influence can be that you may make a decision that puts you secondary for the benefit of someone else.
For the relationships
That's
that
right.
you have influence
That's right.
on. So let's spend the rest of our time together. That's kind of the intentionality piece, and sometimes making hard or seasonal decisions. Let's talk a little bit about relationships. I talk to my son almost every day. I talk to my daughter a couple times a week. My wife and I are in constant communication. Relationships are a big deal
That's
at our
right.
home. And you never know which of those conversations. Often my son, I just thought about this in the moment. Often my son calls me. He's got a lot of words to say. You think I got a lot of words, man? He's got a lot of words to say. And he calls me. I'm like, hey, babe, Pops, what's going on? And the other day I was driving home from work and I thought, I need to call him. It'll land different if I call him. And I just called and he says, yeah, what you need? And I'm like, oh, just checking up, seeing how things. And the whole tone of the conversation shifted to he felt valued and noticed and appreciated. So much so that later that night, he literally texted me and says, hey, Dad, it meant a lot for you to reach out to me today. Thanks for initiating the call. I thought it was a small thing. In his mind, it was a
stood out. Absolutely.
This is the essence of relationships. And we want to spend the next kind of 20 minutes talking about kind of the intentionality of relationships. And we're going to call it this 4 ways to share your life with others, or 4 ways to kind of be an intentional relationship.
Well, and that's that,
with others.
and that life that is the know and love and value, that part of your life that you have that could be beneficial to others. So that's what we want to share for sure.
So here's number 1. The first step to sharing a relationship with others is to share your stories. I mean, listen, when Baby got home from school as a kid, we could tell when he got off the bus what kind of day he had. It would be like this, and his hoodie was up, or he had a spring in his step, and we'd say, how was your day? He's like, great. First period, and I'm like, here we go.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
He's going to tell us every story from the playground. Stories matter to our family. I think stories matter to healthy relationships. Right. And David writes a lot about stories in Psalm 78. He says, oh, my people, listen to my instructions. Open your ears to what I'm saying, because I'm going to speak to you in a parable, which is a story. I'm going to teach you hidden lessons from our past. Look at number 3, stories that we have heard as an older generation, and stories that we know as an older generation, stories that our ancestors handed down to us. And guess what? We're not going to hold on to those stories. We're just going to pass them on to the people around us, what we know, love, and value. Verse 4, we will not hide these truths from our children. We will tell the next generation, this is from last week, we will tell them about God's glorious deeds, about his power, about his wonders, so that each generation would set their hope anew on God, not forgetting his glorious miracles and obeying his commands. Ultimately, David was saying this. He's going, the best way to teach a lesson is to tell a story. My dad told a lot of stories growing up, not just as a preacher, which we go, oh, there's that story again.
Teaching moment.
But he told a lot of stories at the house. He would tell us make-believe stories at night that somehow always involved characters that disobeyed the same way we did.
Interesting. Funny how they did that.
Yeah, funny how Mom told him to do that.
Yeah.
But he would also very openly share stories about what God was doing in our family, how God was providing for our ministry and the church. And he used to tell a story, and I had forgotten a couple of the details, and I texted my dad this morning. He's 79 years old. I said, Dad, I remember that story you used to tell about the check that came in the mail and blah, blah, blah. And I got some of the pieces of it, but there's one little piece that I'm missing. And instead of him texting me back that one piece that I asked
the whole
for,
story again,
he literally says, give me a call, I'll tell you the story. And he
I
did.
just wanted the punchline.
I was just looking for the nugget, and he literally wanted to get me on the phone and tell me the story.
Yeah.
And you know what the story was? He says, Jay, when you were less than a year old, and we were planting a brand new church in South Georgia, he goes, I wanted to give all of my energies to the church and not work a second job. I knew that the church would take all the energies I had. He says, but I made a commitment to your mom and to the Lord that if we ever had one bill that I couldn't pay, I'd go get a second job. He said, and the first bill came in for the church. He goes, the bill was $300. This is the detail I couldn't remember. It was $319 for that first bill. He goes, and we did not have any money to pay that church bill. He said, I put my suit on because that's what you did back in the day.
Yeah.
He said, I was going to go talk to that creditor and say, we're going to get you paid as soon as we can. He goes, I was going to go apply for jobs with my suit on.
That's what he said he would do.
And he said, and I thought, I opened a post office box for the church just a couple of days ago. I'm going to just stop and see if there happens to be anything in it. What? He goes, Jay, I had told no one even about the post office box. There was no way there would be anything in there. But I thought,
why not?
In case.
Sure.
He said, I walked in, I went to the little window, I looked in, saw one envelope in that box, opened it up, and there was a check addressed to Circle Baptist Church. He says, didn't have a post office box on it, didn't even have an address on it. He said, I went to the postmaster and said, how did this show up in my box? And he says, well, somebody dropped it off. And I remember you opened it up, and it was such a weird name. I looked it up, and I put it in your box. The bill was for $319 for what he owed. The check was for $323. Now, to me, it'd be a much better story if the check was for $319.
$319, yeah.
And I said, Dad, what'd you do with the extra $4? He says, you and your brother, me and your mom went to McDonald's, and we bought $4 worth of hamburgers.
Well, Happy Meals were $1 maybe back then. I don't know.
Cheap. And so I remember, listen, you've heard me tell stories of God's provision for my family and for our ministry here at Man Up. I get it honest. That's legacy. I grew up hearing stories of how God provided. And sometimes the best way to teach a lesson is to tell a story.
Tell a story. And that story, that's a positive ending story. And point number 2 is around this idea of sharing your struggles.
Yeah. They don't always end with a check in the box.
They don't always end well.
Yeah.
And David talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
And in many ways, David's vulnerability and honesty is what attracts us to the every man in him.
Yeah.
Because we see ourselves in that same place. And so in Psalm 71, verse 9, don't abandon me when my strength is failing. How many times is our strength is failing?
A lot.
A lot. For my enemies are whispering against me. All the people that you walk into a room and you just feel like you're not welcome. That there's something that they have on you or against you, or that they're plotting to not support you. It's quite common in the day, especially now. They're not even whispering against you. They're posting comments about you.
They're tweeting against you.
They're tweeting against you. It's incredibly easy to know who your enemies are right now, because they'll tell you they are plotting together to kill me. They say God has abandoned him. Let's go and get him, for no one will help him now.
That's bad news right there.
I am on my own.
That's bad.
Oh God, don't stay away. In desperation, my God, please hurry to help me.
Yeah.
Bring disgrace and destruction on my accusers.
I like that.
He's like, let him have it.
Like, go get him.
If I'm going to ask for something, go ahead and do that.
Go get him.
Humiliate and shame those who want to harm me. But I will keep.
He vented.
He let it out. He released it. He popped the top on it and just let it out. But he changes his posture. But I will keep on hoping for your help.
Yeah.
I will praise you more and more. And I will tell everyone about your righteousness.
His circumstances hadn't changed.
They had not changed at all.
This was minutes after popping his top.
That's right.
And now he's praising the Lord.
All day I will proclaim your saving power. Circle that, saving power.
Hadn't happened yet.
It hadn't happened yet.
It had happened previously.
No.
And he needed it again.
He needed it again. Though I am not skilled with words. Really?
It kind of seems like he was pretty skilled with words.
I mean,
Just throwing that out there.
Debatable. Psalms are pretty amazing. And so, but his posture was this idea of here's this struggle I have, and I'm going to share it with a person
Pretty openly.
very openly,
Yeah.
very raw. So when you think of this idea of legacy and sharing your life with others, you're going to share some wonderful stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really important to share your struggles. And I think the way that I think about this from a legacy standpoint is if they've never heard your struggles, they'll never listen to your solutions.
Yeah.
The fixes you have for their situation won't matter if they don't know what you struggle with. Now, here's the interesting thing about this point. As Jay and I were building these lessons and building these, this one is really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear many of the struggles from my parents. I didn't see many struggles.
We kind of grew up with a generation that
They didn't talk about that, right? So whether that was natural or not in that time and place, that was the world that many of us that are in our age grew up with, which we didn't know what the struggles of our parents were. We didn't know what the struggles were of our family. They hid it or protected us from them. So from a modeling standpoint, as a dad, at least specifically in this home situation, the idea of sharing your struggles with your kids, I resorted to, well, I'll share my struggles with my spouse and I'll share my struggles maybe with some coworkers or with some mentors. But the idea of sharing those struggles with my children really just felt weird to me. And maybe it's pride. Maybe it's the idea that I just didn't want to be embarrassed with the things I struggle with, which is something that many of us many struggle with in sharing our struggles. It wasn't until recently when my 21-year-old son, we were getting together for dinner. And we're sitting on the porch outside this little pizza place. And he goes, Dad, like, if I actually can help you now.
Yeah.
Like,
he had some wisdom for you.
He how do I say this? He wanted to know more because now he's a man that struggles with similar things or different things that I certainly want to speak into as a parent. But now we've gone from I'm ahead of him to, well, what if we're next to each other? So when this idea of sharing your struggles for those men in the room that have teenagers or young adults, it could be time. It could be time that instead of you just offering the solutions to their struggles and their problems, that it's a time to invite them in. At least it has been for me to invite them in to the struggles of where I'm at, so that they see me in the same way David positioned himself in front of his father, that I could position myself in front of these children that I've done life with for 20 to 23 years in some cases, to share that with me, to carry that burden with me.
And you're just going to have to use your wisdom on how much to share.
Absolutely.
When they're ready for it. I mean, when they're younger, you just don't want to roll out everything that you're dealing with. They're 6 and 7. But sometimes the earlier they are, you can just apologize. That's a way to share your struggle. I struggle with that too. In fact, I say it, man, up all the time. Sometimes the most important thing you can say, or the most powerful thing you can say, is 2 words. Me too. Me too. My son called me the other day and told me something that he was, angry about. And he goes, I just struggle with some anger sometimes. And I'm like, buddy, me too. Me too. You know that. That sometimes has been my deal. And so because we can have that me too conversation, at times I can lead him and at times he can lead me, and times I can pray for him, at times he can pray for me. But it's, share your stories and share your struggles. Now, don't forget to do the next 2. And number 3 is this. We moved a little bit more positive here. Share your victories. Like, when you do come through that season of struggle, don't go, well, that's just behind me and we're never going to talk about it again. It's just sunny days ahead, rainbows and unicorns. But to turn around and give God thanks for that, and to share that story, David says again in Psalm 71, I'm going to praise your mighty deeds, O sovereign Lord. I'm going to tell everybody how just that you are. Oh God, you've taught me from my earliest childhood. I'm going to constantly tell others about the wonderful things that you do. This is one of my favorite verses in all of Scripture, and it's Psalm 71:18. David says, now that I'm old and gray, don't abandon me, God. Let me proclaim your power to this new generation and your mighty miracles to all those who come after me. That was our student ministry verse, theme verse for my student ministry for years. This idea of as we're aging and as we're learning and as we know and feel things differently, we just want to pass that on to the generations behind us and around us. By the way, can I say this? This is why I tell my man up story so frequently. I have not gotten over what happened on that day where I got invited to man up and pushed my credit card, my keys, and my computer across the table. Had to talk to my family and say, Dad's on a leave of absence to get some things right. I don't shy away from that story. It's part of the celebration of what God did in my life all those years ago, and a reminder that if I'm not careful, I can be back there again.
That's right.
If I don't put God first.
That's right.
We say it this way, man, of celebrating the victory is part of giving God the glory. Celebrating the victory. You don't win a state championship and go, oh, well, that was really good. Let's go. No, you go out for a pizza party and you get count. And you make a huge deal about the victory.
Think about this through the lens of legacy, right? So sharing this victory, if someone's not in a place of victory,
it gives them hope.
It's inspiration and it's hope. It's what we talked about last time. It's like, don't give up. Like, stay in there.
It's look what God did for me. And then turn it to, he can do
that for you. Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of this sharing your victories is that celebrating those, that like posture of gratitude and recognizing them makes it so now you have something to, you have a story to tell, right? And I think we all have a story to tell, and oftentimes we diminish those victories and we don't think they're worth anything. Well, they could be worth a lot to someone else to be able to share that with them. So as we close, the fourth kind of way to share your life with others is to share your faith.
That's that value.
That is the value. What matters to you? That part of you that's a fabric of who you are as a person. And so, again, David, he's writing this, and so just to kind of piggyback this the new generation that Jay mentioned in 71, let each generation. So circle that, each generation.
That's
the next one. Tell its children, so that generation's children, of your mighty acts. Let them proclaim your power. I will meditate on your majestic, glorious splendor and your wonderful miracles. Again, going back to victories. A lot of times victories are these miracles. Your awe-inspiring deeds, these things that you did where you came through in my life that I didn't think you could. Will be on every tongue. I will proclaim your greatness. Everyone will share the story of your wonderful goodness. They will sing your joy about your righteousness. So, sharing your faith, this call, this commission that we have to share our faith. Many of you listening do lead families. And for me, I mentioned earlier how in the last lesson about how I was kind of a reluctant father. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and I'm not the playful guy, and what will it be that they'll take away from me? Well, what I learned as the kids got a little bit older, that what I could do was create these mile markers and mementos in their life, these celebrations of these passages or seasons that would reinforce, hopefully, the development of their faith. So when the kids were 7, we built a plaque for them that they would hang in their room that basically said, here's what a real young woman or young man is. And it was this REAL on the chart. And it talked about respecting your parents and encouraging others and admitting your mistakes and learning God's teachings, right? And so what the sharing your faith piece, it can show up in different ways. I don't have the same gifts that Jay has, but I have different gifts. And I think that's when you think of the sharing of your faith, you may share it in a way with your kids that's different than someone else, but just share it. You may share your faith in a different way with your coworkers. Well, just share it. Like whatever that looks like. And I'm going to just quickly. So when they were 13, I gave the boys a compass. Because I felt like at 13, your life begins to change quite a bit.
You start getting off track.
Middle school, all the influence of, like just your body starts changing, your identity starts to change in terms of who you're going to be and what am I going to study in sports and things like that. And so I gave them a compass. And the idea was that follow God's path for your life. So last week, my son started a new job. 21-year-old son started a new job, and he sends a picture to the group chat, the group text or whatever about like this,
which was intentional.
He sends this to the family and with a picture of his desk. On his desk,
there it is.
It's that compass.
Yeah, the compass.
He's had that compass for 8 years.
Yeah, it's meaningful.
And he brought it to his new job and set it on his desk and took a picture of it and sent it to the family. And I don't know how to express how beautiful that was, because in some small way, I've watched him now begin to share his faith. And I'd like to believe that all these mementos and others along the way that were me sharing my faith of how it mattered to me through hopefully physical reminders, he would take those, and he has.
Yeah. You may not be very playful, my friend, but you're extremely intentional. And I love to see the way that you pass that on to your kids. Well done.
Thank you.
Speaking of passing on to your kids, we're going to end with this. We've talked about this idea of how intentional David was, how relational he was with his kids. And I believe in particular Solomon
for sure
followed footsteps with his dad. In 1 Kings chapter 2, we find this unique little passage. It says, at the time of King David's death, he gave his charge to his son Solomon. In verse 2, it says, I'm going to go where everybody on earth has to eventually go. Like, everybody's going to have to go on without me here. He says, take courage and be a man. So boy, that'll so preach good. Right there.
So
we can have a whole section on that. And then, but here's what I love. Here's his definition of manhood. Verse 3, 2 Kings 2:3. Here's what a man does. A man observes the requirements of the Lord your God. A man follows the Lord's ways. A man keeps his decrees and commands and regulations and laws so that you'll be successful in all that you do and wherever you go. It was as if David said, if I only have one last speech to give you, is to share my faith with you. Right. I want you to follow God. Sometimes the most important thing you can give away is your faith. As I was finalizing these notes in my desk at home, I looked over and saw an envelope that was my mother-in-law's last will and testament. We need to file it away and get it properly stored. But it's on my desk right now.
Right, yes.
It's been there for 2 years. There it is. But 2 years ago, we just needed to get her ready for, she's 83 and, just in case. And as we did her last will and testament and all the things that go with that, I thought, she doesn't really have much. She was a single mom most of her life, raised 4 girls. My wife's dad left when she was 3 years old, and she never remarried. And so she didn't really accomplish a whole lot financially. Never had much. Always had enough and was nice and worked lots of jobs. But she never acquired a lot in this world. And I thought, this will's pretty easy. There's a used car. There's a couple used couches. And there's a little tiny bank account with just a little dollar amount in it. And everybody's going to divvy that up and just have a little bit of inheritance from her financially. But that's not the legacy that Zora Robertson left. Hers is a legacy of faith. Man, she planted God's word in my wife's heart as a young kid, planted generosity, planted family, planted hospitality. In fact, they're sewing together today. Just the irony of that. Right now, they're sewing together. And my wife says, it's so good to spend some time with my mom as she's getting older. It brings me back to those days that we used to sew together when I was little. That's the legacy that she's planted. And I contend the legacy that you can plant as well. We love you guys. We hope this has been helpful. And we can't wait to see you again at the table next week.